Today we are subtracting unlike fractions. Keep in mind first you have to find the common denominators, then we subtract our numerators. As a review, denominators mean the bottom number and numerator means the top number. The first example I'm going to do comes from homework 6.2 on question 9. We have 7/10 minus 1/2. Looking at this fraction, I notice that I have a denominator of 10 and 2. I have to find the least common multiple between these two denominators to solve the problem. First thing I do is I count by 2, since it's my smallest denominator, and I see if when I count by 2, I say 10. So go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I say 10. So that means 10 is my common denominator. Now, looking at the first fraction, 7/10, I notice that 10, my denominator did not change, so I'm going to keep my numerator the same. Really what's happening here is you're multiplying each one of these times 1. Anytime you multiply by 1, it's itself, so I can keep 7/10 as 7/10. I don't have to change anything. But on the second fraction, 1/2, I have to change my numerator because my denominator 2 changed to 10. And all I'm doing is I'm changing the digits that make up the fraction, but I'm finding a fraction that's equivalent or the same amount, but it has a different name. To do this, I have to ask myself, what times 2 gives me 10? I know that 2 times 5 is 10. Since I multiplied my bottom number by 5, I also have to multiply the top number by 5. And instead of having 1/2 as 1 over 2, I have 1/2 as 5 over 10. Now I have a subtraction problem with fractions that have common denominators. Now I can do 7/10, and I can take away 5/10. Remember, your denominators stay the same, 10, and 7 minus 5 is 2. One more step, I need to actually simplify 2/10. The greatest common factor between 2 and 10 is 2. Think, when I count by 2, once again, I say 10. So I know that 2 is a factor of 2, and 2 is also a factor of 10. Let's back up and do a quick review. Greatest common factor. Factors of 2 would be 1 and 2. It's a prime number. 1 and itself are factors. And factors of 10 are 1 and 10. I also have 2 and 5. And I know that 3 does not divide 10 equally, so it's not a factor. 4 also does not divide 10 equally, so it's not a factor. So my factors of 10 are 1, 2, 5, and 10. What I mean by greatest common factor is the factor that these two have in common that's the largest. In this case, the only common factor is 2. So that's why I'm reducing this fraction by dividing by 2/2, which is equal to 1. Anytime I divide by 1, I get its self. So if I take 2/10 divided by 1, or in this case 2/2, I ask myself 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. Now that's a really complicated way of doing it. Another way you could do this is look at 2/10 and say, okay, 2 goes into 10 how many times? 2 goes into 10 5 times. 2 goes into itself 1 time. So 2/10 is equivalent to 1/5.